Now it's fine. So, yes. So, good evening to Olyvia ma'am. It is good morning. On behalf of
Yes.
Children Education Society, the Oxford College of Engineering, I, Dr. Manju Devi, Professor and Head, EC Department, take the privilege to welcome you all for the webinar. I welcome Olyvia Rakshit, the most awaited speaker of the day. I welcome all the participants. Let me introduce you the speaker. She is an enthusiastic for building technology products, solving interesting and diverse problems. She has been an avid entrepreneur. Recently, she was a founder CEO of Comicflix, the world's first automated platform to convert videos into visual stories using AI. The Comicflix tech platform was used by leading media entertainment companies in the world to convert their movies and TV shows into comic book format. Prior to Comicflix, she led product teams in global Fortune 100 firms across technology and energy sectors in companies like Dell, EMC, and Nexent USA. She is currently involved with some early stage startups in formulating their product and growth strategies to meet the current challenges of our time. She holds an MBA degree from Boston University, USA, BE in Computer Science Engineering from Birla Institute of Technology, India. I once again welcome you, ma'am, and I request you to take over and go with your presentation.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you to Oxford College of Engineering for the opportunity to invite me and to give me the opportunity to share all of my experiences and insights that I have gained from years of working in the industry. As
Once
I was
again,
saying a
ma'am,
little bit earlier, yeah.
Olyvia Rakshit, ma'am, once again I take the privilege. Many faculty members have joined. Once again, I welcome them on behalf of EC Department, Oxford College of Engineering, and IEEE Student Branch. This program we are doing under IEEE also. Dr. Prita Sharan, she is a student branch counselor day. So once again, I welcome you and all the participants. You can please start, ma'am.
Thank you again, and thank you to all distinguished guests that joined this evening. Um, I'm speaking from Silicon Valley, here in San Francisco, USA. It's morning right here for me. So good evening, all of you, and thank you for to Professor Preeta for reaching out to me. Like I was saying earlier, it's always a humbling experience to talk to people and to talk to an audience, especially from educational institutions, because all of you play such an important role in the world. And so I can only hope that when I share my experiences and my insights from my journey industry, that it plays a small part in your as you make decisions about the future. Um, so you were kind enough to introduce me earlier. I'd just like to add a little more to that. Of course, I grew up in India too, and uh, like it was said in the beginning, I did my engineering from India and MBA from Boston. I have seen the industry from all aspects. I have been in large companies, I have been in startups, I've founded my own company in the media and entertainment space. And so I hope that today I'll be able to give you a holistic view of where I think, from my perspective, that the world is headed and and it's going to be to discuss the technology trends for the next decade. And it's an interesting topic that you've chosen for me. Like it was said before, I've worked in energy, I've worked in risk management for financial services companies, media entertainment. Currently, I'm working with a very interesting company in healthcare infrastructure. So I have that experience from all different sectors to share with you on these technology trends. I've seen a lot of the industry. Uh, but I want to do this webinar today in three parts, if you will. So in the first part, I want to reflect on the past. I think anytime we talk about the future and we want to foresee the trends ahead, it's important to take a moment and reflect on the past and derive some learnings from it, some inspirations from it. And I want to spend a few minutes doing that with you. Um, the other thing I want to do is, of course, pause and, we are in an unprecedented situation right now with the pandemic, and talk a little bit about what's going on now and all of the applications and technologies that are just sprouting up right now. And then we'll talk about the technology trends. I've grouped them into five broad areas. Of course, there's so much that you can talk about on this topic, but hopefully I've been able to touch a lot of them, and I've grouped them into areas. And when I talk about trends, what I want to do with you is leave you with a problem statement or a challenge that I think about in each of these areas, and hopefully that will help you and guide you as you do all of your research or work with the students, or if there are students in this audience, it will you're thinking of being an entrepreneur, hopefully that will help. So that's the structure that I wanted to lay out. So let's dive in. So we will, like I said before, we'll talk about the past a little bit first. So more than 100 years ago, a commissioner in the US PTO office said everything that has been invented, or sorry, everything that can be invented has already been invented. So, and then there's another quote, which is from the CEO of IBM, Thomas Watson, who famously said that the world probably needs just 5 computers and 5,000 copy machines. IBM Watson, the computer that's attributed to him. So think about that for a moment. Everything that can be invented has already been invented. And the world probably needs just 5 computers. So there are times when we think that a lot has already been done. Will there ever be more? But you know what? Human spirit, human endeavor always prevails. We always find a better way of doing something. We always find a substitute. I'm sorry, is someone trying to say something? I don't see my video. Is it okay? Can I carry on?
Yeah. You carry on. You carry on. Yeah.
Okay. So as you are thinking about trends or what will be next, and if ever that crosses your mind that I don't know if there's anything further to do in this area, then think about these quotes. These were influential people of their times, and probably the worst tech predictions ever made, that the world will just need 5 computers, or we've invented everything we ever can. So I thought that's interesting for us to reflect on, and that's the hard part about thinking about trends in the future, um, because sometimes we do think that we've reached a wall, but we know that there is always a way to improve and a way to do things better. The second thing I wanted to point out when we talk about change or innovation or disruptive technologies is this exponential curve. So not only that there will always be progress and always be change, but also that change happens exponentially. So what that means is that there'll be more change that happens in the next decade than that has happened in the last 250 years. So again, think about that for a moment. More change has happened in the last 5 years than what has happened in the last 50 years. So it's not just about that, whether there'll be change or not, but the pace of change also increases. And there's a reason for that. It's because innovation is always an iterative process. So you're always building on what the earlier generation, whatever they developed or they discovered. So it's true, you never get it right the first time. So it's through these iterative process and through these incremental value that each person or each community or each generation adds, that we build big things over time. And so when we talk about the next decade, there will be so much more innovation that hasn't happened in the last 250 years. So I think that's an important thing to always remember and reflect on. And the third thing, before we jump on to the trends, I think it's important for all of us to remember that when we look at history, times of crisis have been a catalyst for innovation. So, so crisis has been the motivation for innovation. So 57% companies are born in a downturn. HP, Hewlett Packard, was born of a recession in 1929. Microsoft was born of a recession in 1976. The iPod was invented during a recession in 2001. So, and there's so much more. We know that the times of war had given rise to so much technologies, better cars. World War II gave birth to better cars, better airplanes. GPS was invented at that time. Internet, as we know, was a DARPA project. Microwave technology, even drones were a result of military projects. And then we had 9/11, and 9/11 led to a proliferation of surveillance technologies, and a lot of AI and robotics was developed during 9/11. So it's not just about whether we invent or not, or whether we further a certain application or product or discovery, but we also do it at a faster pace. And more often than not, we do it during times of crisis and times of hardship and human suffering. So if at this time during the pandemic, if ever you feel low and, and all of us feel that we don't know where things are headed. So let's remember that this is the time to derive that inspiration from the past. And because, the human spirit has always won during times of crisis and invented more and always strove forward. So that was my reflection on a little bit on the past, and with that knowledge, I'd like to take a few minutes, and then reflect on the present situation right now. We are in crisis mode right now. It's as it has been rightfully called, the Great Reset. So the pandemic represents a rare but a narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. The executive chairman of the World Economic Forum said that. So again, we are in a moment of crisis. So this is the time to reflect, to reimagine, and reset our world. And we'll be doing a lot of that today as we think about the trends and and all of the wonderful areas that we will see progress in the next decade. And while this pandemic is going on, of course, we've suddenly seen a proliferation of a number of tools and technologies and companies becoming household names. I'll give you a more global or maybe a US centric view of all this, but I know it's a lot of this is applicable to in India, and there are a lot of technologies that are coming up in these areas in India as well. So work from home, Zoom is or WebEx that we are using now has become a household name right now. Work from home applications, online shopping. I know Amazon's valuation is off the charts with the amount of shopping people are doing online. Contactless payments. Here in the US, we have Square and PayPal, and again, companies that their valuations are going up because contactless payments and digital payments have become a pain. Then distance learning, even the kids are using Google Classroom here, and I keep hearing about new tools and companies. I heard one recently called Edgenuity, and then Acelius, and there are all these companies that school districts and schools are adopting very fast to help students with, and even colleges, to help students with distance learning. And that's going to be a huge trend in the future, but also currently a very active one. Telehealth. Teladoc is a company that again shot up in valuation here in the US. It's a way for people to connect with doctors from inside their homes and get uh, diagnosed or get advice from doctors. So that's a huge area as well. Of course, online entertainment. All of us are always hooked onto Netflix or Amazon Prime or other ways of getting online entertainment, gaming and esports, and all of that has seen a huge bump of users. 3D printing. There's so many communities who've come together and they've gotten together and they're 3D printing face shields and other things to help with the needs of this during this coronavirus crisis. Supply chain. Supply chain, of course, took a big hit during this COVID time. And we've seen and we're hearing about innovations and applications with IoT and AI and big data all come together, and there'll be a proliferation of apps in what's being called a supply chain 4.0, where and also risk management applications, so that companies that face the crisis that they face now, that their operations were completely stalled because they couldn't get the goods and materials. So all of those problems are being looked at. And then robots. Robots are, uh, I've seen robots, pictures of robots taking swabs of patients to test for the virus, or robots in hospital wards tending to patients because they're trying to minimize contact with doctors. So there's so much that's even happening now, and so much tools and technologies and companies that are coming to the forefront right now because of the crisis that we are in. So this is again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that crisis is a perfect time to bring the change. It's a perfect catalyst for change. So with that background, with some reflection in the past, and with and talking about what really drives the human spirit, and reflecting on the current situation, I'd like to go on to the next section, or the meat of our topic today, which is the trends, the technology trends that will rule a lot of the next decade. Now, like I said before, um, I have grouped them into 5 broad trends because there are so many of them. Of course, you can speak hours on each one. But what I try to do is bring related technologies in and hopefully discuss with you like a story as to how they can be used, or what are the areas they are being used, and what are the challenges that can and will be solved in the future. So first, let's talk about the first trend that I have here, which is ubiquitous information. And it's AI, cloud, edge, data, voice-enabled technologies, all of that coming together. So going forward, if you reflect on where we are now, and there will be an increasing need of getting more and more information wherever you are and whatever you're doing, whether you are, or education or traveling or entertainment, you want access to information, and lots of information, intelligent information to help you at that time. So that has given and will give in the future a big boost to big data driven technologies. So earlier, when I began my career in software development, we used to build client server applications, right? And then cloud came along. And now, so there are only a few, cloud centers all over the world, but you need real-time applications that run artificial intelligence models. You need AI models which run on lots of volumes of data to give you inferencing real time. So doing that on the cloud, that has a little bit of limitations in terms of performance. So edge networks came along. So when they replicated the cloud into a smaller network near you, so now building real-time applications with powered by AI is possible. And then, of course, big data is sitting at the back of all of this information, because AI is as good as the data that you feed it. And then you build analytics and all of the inferences that you can with all of the data that you're collecting and saving. So AI is as good as the data that trains it. So we need enterprise grade, low latency applications running AI models in milliseconds. So think about, since I'm doing this healthcare technology startup, working with a startup right now. So one of the problems they're solving is in healthcare. So doctors, when they do a procedure in clinics and in hospitals, a procedure like maybe an ultrasound, or they're monitoring your heart, or they're doing a colonoscopy, they're taking these video feeds. So this data, these video captures can be fed into an AI model, and the AI model can guide the doctor real time and tell them, here, this is where you need to look. I think there's a polyp here, there's an anomaly here. And but all that has to happen real time. There cannot be a lag, there cannot be a high latency. So AI and cloud and edge, and to some extent 5G, has to come together to give enterprise grade applications that real time experience, that low latency experience. So that's a big push for the future. And then there are so many exciting applications for AI going forward. So there are face recognition technologies that are being built on AI. There are ways to extract emotions. Um, we all watch Netflix. Netflix predictive engine, when it knows what to suggest to you, what you would like based on your past viewing behaviors. That's based on AI. Then banks and financial institutions are using AI to detect fraud and keep their customers safe from hackers. And then I described to you about the healthcare use cases. Of course, there's a lot more that's going on, but these are some of the areas. But the important thing to remember is that we are at an age, and we more and more in the future, the need will be to get instant information and real-time information without any lags and intelligence from computing and from AI models. And we need to be able to bring AI and cloud and edge networks and really huge database technologies to power such applications. And of course, and make them voice enabled so that the way to interact with these systems and these applications become very seamless. So that's the and these trends that I've put together are not in the order of importance by any means, but that's the first trend I wanted to talk to you about. And what I mentioned that I'll be referring to some challenge or some problem statement that I think about when this topic comes to mind. And here's something I want to leave you with on this topic, that think of the human brain. How does the human brain store and process information? So the human brain, it has unlimited storage, and it's able to take split decisions with almost partial information. How does it do that? So, if I'm looking at this face, I can maybe just see a part of a face and I recognize who the person is if I know the person well. I can see my car from a distance and I know it's mine just by seeing only a part of it. So it almost seems like there's a way that the brain records traits, but the way facial recognition is done now, that you need like tons of information about each point of your face, and only then an AI model is able to recognize a face. So I think the next evolution on this on AI will be to train models on how to take decisions or how to make inferences with partial information, with inferred data, and that would be the next stage of revolution or evolution of applications on AI. So that's something I wanted you to think about on this one. So we'll move on to, I hope you're doing okay on time, because I don't have the clock here, but please feel to prompt me. So the next one I wanted to talk about, it's a favorite of mine, is the autonomous cars and bikes, self-driving cars. And again, reflecting on history here, Henry Ford once said that if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said horses. So that's an interesting thing that comes to mind, that oftentimes most people, we really don't know what we need in the future. But amongst us, a few of them do, a few of us do, and those are the ones that build companies and build the next technologies and the next cutting edge research. So always we should challenge ourselves and think that there has to be a better possibility. So cars have run for hundreds of years, and finally now we have self-driving cars, and I have one of them, so I know the importance of of an autonomous car. It's really safe. And so to me, it's almost like it makes no sense for us to drive cars anymore because as human beings, we are inefficient. We make mistakes. That's why we get into accidents. There are about close to 100,000 deaths that happen because of road accidents every year. But autonomous car technology prevents those. It prevents cars from crashing. So the world needs not only autonomous cars that Tesla has come up with in a big way, but we need to extend this to scooters and cycles and all vehicles. And it's just a matter of time. It will happen. And every vehicle in the road needs to be self-driving. So think about autonomous cycles. It should never lose its balance because I don't know. So maybe you have to change the center of gravity and manage it that way. An autonomous scooter should never skid. So that's what I think about when I think about self-driving car technology. That how will we build in the next decade? How will we take this technology that Tesla has built for the autopilot technology that makes cars self-driven? How do we extend that to cars and bikes so that a two-wheeler can be driven? Of course, you have to still hold the thing, but for the most part, it takes the even in a car, you have to still hold the steering, but for the most part, it takes the stress away from your driving because you're almost certain that you will have a crash. If there's something coming, the car will stop, or it will swerve, or it will slow down. And machines and there's so many sensors, so machines are more efficient in doing that, and they react quicker. So how do you develop sensors so that for bikes, so that if it's going to crash, then these brakes can be applied almost immediately? That would save a lot of accidents that happen in India inadvertently. So this is trend two. I think a lot is going to happen, and what Tesla has done is and that's the nature of innovation as to what the approach or the business model a particular company takes. But they have created a high-end version for maybe the one population out of the 7 billion. But we need to take this technology to the rest of the 6 billion, and it will happen, and companies will do it, and students and researchers like yourself, if you develop such a technology, you should take it to the industry. And that would be when we bring these technologies that are catered only to a segment of population and we make them mainstream, that's really the power of technology changing lives. And that should be all of our goals. So that's all I'll say on autonomous cars and vehicles in general. So we did AI and cloud and edge, and then we talked about autonomous cars. The third one I want to focus on is on healthcare. There is so much that needs to be done and will be done in bringing technology to healthcare. And now that I'm focused on in this sector, I'm realizing that this is one industry. Of course, a lot of innovation has happened, but it seems to be one that's lagging with the high-end technology penetration. So there's a lot that can be here, hugely fragmented, but there's a lot of need that's emerging and going to emerge here. So when I think of healthcare, I'd like to break it down into two. So there's healthcare, and then And then there's well-being, which actually comes before healthcare. So people are realizing more than before, and we've had this knowledge from ages in India, but the world is realizing more than before that the best approach to healthcare is to be proactive about it and not reactive. So you need to take care of yourself on a day-to-day basis and not wait that when something goes wrong, a doctor will take care of you, right? So this later part is what mostly the Western world has been used to, but things are changing now. So what are those applications and platforms that we can build to help people with that proactive approach to healthcare? There's a lot going on in wearable technology that helps you monitor and detect vital statistics of your body from a day-to-day or moment-to-moment basis. Your blood pressure levels, your oxygen levels in your blood, your glucose content, or others. So and we need and we need better versions of the phone apps that and all of this, integrated applications that help capture this information and then store this information in the cloud and then monitor and report and help individuals and their healthcare providers with all of this data. So having data and applications on not when you're sick, but when you're healthy, when your day-to-day health, based on your day-to-day activities, I think is going to become very important going forward. And then if you do everything right and you still fall sick, then of course we need a suite of technologies to help the medical profession. And I was surprised to learn that a lot of these really big devices are not connected to the cloud. So the ultrasound machines, the MRI machines, and things that measure things on the heart or lungs or the gut, the colon. Um, these are all they are huge machines that occupy the doctors use and occupy procedure rooms and hospitals and clinics, but they are not connected to the internet, to the cloud. They don't automatically send data for analysis, and so there's a lot of applications and tools and technologies that are coming up on that front, connecting medical devices to cloud and medical AI. Of course, a doctor will tell you that AI didn't go to medical school, so AI cannot help me. But at the end of the day, doctors need assistance too because they're doing so much. They are seeing so many patients, and they draw from years of experience to detect something in your heart or lungs. But all of that years of experience, the images, the videos can be fed into an AI model, and it can be an added source of help to a doctor to help with detection. And the beauty about this is that there can be various other variants of cases that the doctor may not have looked at, that other doctors may have looked at, or in other parts of the world, and all of that can be brought into an AI model. And now the doctor has this additional intelligent inferencing help, and that just improves patient outcomes. So every medical device needs to be cloud connected and AI enabled, and lots of data to be stored in a secure and private manner, and then lots of applications to be built on that data to help the medical profession. So healthcare is going to become increasingly intelligent, and there will be a huge focus on well-being apps, is the thought that I want to leave you with on this topic. Um, So on the challenge side, what I think about is, can there be an instrument, like think of a thermometer, that can be used to measure ingredients, like how much oil is there in your food, how much salt, how much sugar. Some people are supposed to eat less salt, some people are supposed to go on sugar, but we don't have those devices that can have sensors that you stick into your food and it tells you. I think that would be very interesting. There are problems with food quality and adulteration and supply chain issues. Can those be monitored with some simple tools, devices, and sensors? People need to, want to be able to watch calories and maintain their weight. Can there be a plate that has like an embedded weighing scale, so to measure, because the medical profession always advises us that eat smaller proportions. So how about a scale embedded with our plate that tells you that, okay, I'm overeating right now, I should probably take a little bit away from my plate. So those are some of the interesting, I think, things that I think about, that I wanted to share, that can really help going forward when you think about healthcare applications, or applications that can help with our day-to-day well-being, around monitoring food um, and, and what we intake in the body every day. So that is my technology trend, the third technology. Let's move on to the next one. So this is what I call ultra gigabyte connectivity. And of course, I've brought in a lot of technologies around this, but it's really about how to make every, like I was seeing the other day in my house, we have probably 40 different IP addresses, even right now. So think about a world of 7 billion people and trillions of devices connected. So, with 5G and with Internet of Everything that they're calling it now, and of course, we'll come to AR and VR. So there is so much that can be done when connectivity just takes leaps and bounds in terms of performance. We have 5G now. That's the latest introduction. But the next decade, we'll see a huge, I don't know where we land up with what G, but it's the ultra gigabyte connectivity where the world always is increasingly moving to. So until now, we were limited. If you needed to use a high bandwidth application, you needed a laptop, you needed a desktop computer. But with 5G, that's going to change. You'll be able to do that with mobile and with other devices. So with 5G, there's going to be a proliferation of video apps, high definition video apps, and no latency video apps. So there'll be no disturbance when you're chatting with your friends and family. Streaming will be instant. Multiplayer gaming and esports, I mean, for them, the experience will be at a whole new level. So a lot of, and these are just some of the use cases that I've labeled here, but the important thing to think about is video, and video consumption will really be escalated to the next level with 5G. And then what this ultra gigabyte connectivity enables us to do is to look at other technologies and build and take them to the next level, like augmented reality. There's an interesting application that I heard recently on AR. It's like the cities and towns are using AR apps to, think of an app that you can hold and it will show you all of the the infrastructure that's underground, the water infrastructure, the pipe infrastructure. So now it's a nightmare for them to detect problems if there is some problem in the pipelines. But again, with 5G, building these kind of augmented reality apps where you take an app and you are, um, and it shows you everything that's happening underground. Or you point an app to your car and you are able to look at the insides of an engine, and fault detection becomes much easier that way. So those are and so much more that you can do. But augmented reality, we've seen some version of it, but that's going to go leaps and bounds with 5G and further proliferation of this gigabyte technologies. And then it's not just AR, it's VR as well. VR is more experiential and limited to gaming now, but it is when you hear marketers speak, they talk about the experience economy. That's one buzzword that comes up very often. So more and more VR apps. So if you want to shop, you put on your VR headset and then you're in the while sitting in your house. You're walking through the stores, you're walking through the aisles, and maybe you're even just picking up things from the aisles and putting it in your cart. And it's a whole three-dimensional experience. And that's going to happen, and those kind of applications will come more and more to the forefront, and will completely change um, the way we experience and the way we do even normal activities, and all of that will start with 5G and beyond. And then, of course, drones. Drones are being used in deliveries and in a lot of I think, overhead photography for media companies use it, news companies are using it for aerial photography. So a lot of application for drones that will only go beyond what it's now, again, with 5G and increased network bandwidth. So again, what I wanted to draw your attention to also was this challenge that I think about, that all devices in your homes, a cooking gas, a fridge, a thermometer, and all of this technology is being developed right now, but all of them can now have an IP address. And you can build applications such that you can collect all of this data and build you send them to the cloud and then build applications that can be used if your gas is running out, or if there's a leak, and there needs to be some sort of a warning notification sent, or it can monitor usage. So that's the next to think about. How do we connect every device, every object of everyday use with an IP address, and then send that information to the cloud, and then build applications on it to help with our day-to-day stuff. Make them easily accessible, report on them, give some inferences, and make that data searchable. I think that would be a huge. So here you're bringing IoT, you're bringing 5G, and then even some augmented reality features on such applications. So that's trend number 4 that I wanted to discuss with you, and talk about this ultra gigabyte connectivity and all of the technologies that can come together and give a whole new experience to humanity. And then the last one that I have here is again an exciting one. If you like space travel or like reading about it and following it, I don't know how many of you watched the the SpaceX launch recently, another of Elon Musk's ventures. It was an afternoon our time. It was probably late in the night in India. But that was a very enthusiastic time for a lot of technology lovers and space enthusiasts. And what happened there is it made the possibility for private citizens to go to space, and he's the technology that SpaceX built. It's lowered the cost of sending these rockets and bulk loads into space, and more private companies will follow this trend and get into space travel, and that's a big trend for the next decade. It will see an ecosystem of companies that develop technologies and focus on space tourism. Won't that be fun? You know, Occupy Mars has already become such a buzzword and a catchword right now. So when we think about space travel, they're already focusing a lot on how to bring down the cost of these things, how to reuse a lot of components and parts. But when you think about occupying Mars or people living in space, then we need to think about how to grow food there. Can food be grown without soil? Can there be hydroponic farming done where food grows on water? So I suspect a lot of research will start happening and becoming mainstream about how to sustain life on these planets that we are easily and in low cost able to send people to. So how to create self-sustaining habitats with less atmosphere, or how to grow food without soil, and those kind of technologies. Um, and even in terms of communication, how do we support high bandwidth communication without outer space? I was hearing a problem recently that when Earth is in one end of the orbit and Mars is in the other end, then communication becomes difficult, or if the moon comes in between. So how do we solve some of that, and how do we have unlimited and uninterrupted high bandwidth communication from Mars to Earth? And this is also something I was thinking about, that how do you build, and this is for all of you researchers in the space, that how do you build a GPS system for space? I mean, things are always moving, so how does that work? I mean, that I don't have any answers, but that was an interesting problem, I thought. And then when you think about habitats, building a habitat in space or in a planet like Mars, can you 3D print a house out of the material that's available there? So what SpaceX did is it has lowered the barrier for a lot of private citizens now to go into space, and a lot of private companies will put more focus on that. But whether it's food or building houses or places to live, that's the next thing that companies will also start focusing on in the next decade, is my um, inference. So those are the 5 broad trends that I wanted to focus on. I hope I didn't rush through it too much, but the first one was around getting ubiquitous information around AI, and um, and bringing cloud data, edge, and a lot of voice interactivity to your applications. The second one was around autonomous vehicles, and to extend that from cars to other type of automotive technologies. And the third one is all of the advancements and bringing deep tech into healthcare applications for both well-being and for doctors. And the next one we talked about was this age of ultra gigabyte connectivity and how to bring IoT and build applications on 5G for better experience, bring a lot of AR and VR into the mix. And of course, the last exciting one is around space travel. So those are the 5 trends that I wanted to focus on today, and I hope I've given you a lot to think about. I'll just end with saying so what will be the next? Just leave you with a few questions. That what will be the next thing that challenges you and me? It's a question to myself. What are those things out of all of this that we've discussed, and many more that we haven't discussed? What are those things that will make us look further and work harder? And with that, I will end my presentation. And I hope this has been helpful. It was very exciting for me and fun for me to put this together for you. And I hope this has been helpful to all of you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the inspirational talk. The session was very informative and interesting. Now, let us open up for a quick question answer session. Participants can post their queries in chat box. If any queries, participants can post in the chat box.
Lakshmi,
Yes, ma'am.
I think the session was so clear that one question has come, you can take up. Otherwise, people are writing it is crystal clear and excellent. So you can read the question which they have given. How do we ensure data confidentiality for all this platform? Ma'am, you can take up that question. Olyvia, ma'am, you can hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and it's privacy and confidentiality, and especially in healthcare, but in all aspects, whether it's financial services, applications, or that is, of course, the prime concern from a user's perspective and from businesses like us that build applications. So, again, I won't go into, and you will know better than me as to how to build, these technologies, but that's a definite need that you do need to focus on security and privacy and use all of the technologies to make sure that when you're storing information on the cloud, that it is, and whether it's Google Cloud or Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure, all have services that help you build things in an extremely secure manner. And when we build applications on these platforms, that has to be predominant in our minds, because people do worry that while it's nice that we are getting information when we need it, we're getting all of this intelligence, our information needs to be secure and not publicly available. So it's a great question. That's something that should be front and center and prime on all application developers' minds and all business owners' minds, no matter what application you're building. Make use of, follow every security protocol and make use of all of the security infrastructure that is there when you build your apps.
Yes, Lakshmi?
Any more queries, participants?
Yeah, one question actually I was wondering, and I was very happy that each of our household thing will have IP address. So can you comment on that? How we can do that? It's really very interesting to know that.
I mean, I think that was Professor Preeta, right? I come from it from a business side where I think about applications that are needed. And you come from it from a technology. You know more about the technology aspect of things than I have left working on technology for a long time and focus more on the business needs of things. But that's the need, and whether it's taking a simple Raspberry Pi or an IoT device and connecting it, but with 5G, that's what's going to be possible, and connecting it to these devices so that now they are connected to the internet, or now they can send information to the cloud. Those are the type of innovations that's needed. Like I mentioned about the gas chulha that we have in our houses, right? I mean, there's no reason why that should not have an IP address and an application just for itself. In our houses here, I checked the other day, there are 40 IP addresses. The smallest of devices, the doorbell, has an IP address. The key that opens the door, the padlock, that has an IP address. So it's happening here, and it's going to happen everywhere. How you do that, let's leave it to the hardcore engineers. They'll figure it out.
Thanks. I will take this further.
Sure, I know you will.
Any other queries, participants? Thank you, ma'am, and thanks for accepting our request amidst your busy schedule.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's an honor and a privilege, and I hope this has been an interesting 1 hour for all of you as well. And I appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. Now, I will request our HOD, Dr. Manju Devi, to conclude the session with a vote of thanks.
So, Olyvia ma'am, it was a wonderful session. I thank you for that. And it was well organized. You have covered almost all the criterias. You have segregated into 5 points where you have covered almost everything. I say 5G or which is automation. The information was really good. You have taken up almost all the points and made the session very interesting. The participants' feedback, you can see there, they keep writing, very informative. Ma'am, it was very useful. And they were moved away by your presentation. Thank you, ma'am. It was a very good presentation. On behalf
Where
of
can we
the
give feedback?
I'd like to add, I have my email ID here. Please feel free to anybody.
Yeah, ma'am, share that. I will share to the participants also.
Yes, just reach out, and I really believe in this, working together between the academia and industry. I think we can do a lot together. So
Yeah.
if there's to discuss, or I would love to hear from all of you and connect with LinkedIn.
To the department. We'll have your collaboration in future, ma'am.
Yeah.
We'll keep in touch. Thanks a lot. On behalf of our AC department, Oxford College of Engineering, and IEEE student branch, I thank you once again. All the participants, thank you for participating. So I will end the meeting now, ma'am. And participant, please fill the feedback form for the certificates. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you.
you.
Bye, ma'am. I'll end the meeting, ma'am.
Yeah, please end the meeting.